History is written by the victors, but in the car world, the best ideas don't always win. The automotive landscape is littered with the ghosts of incredible machines, cars that were smarter, safer, or more innovative than anything else on the road, yet they ended up as commercial catastrophes. These aren't tales of bad cars or simple bad luck. These are the complex stories of brilliant vehicles that were perhaps too early, too strange, or too threatening to the established order. They are the fascinating what-ifs that could have changed the course of automotive history. Today, we're taking a deep dive into 10 cars that genuinely should have changed the game, but instead became cautionary tales. First up, let's address the undisputed heavyweight champion of automotive punchlines, the Pontiac Aztec. For years, this car has been synonymous with failure and hideous design, but the real story is far more interesting. In the late 1990s, the SUV boom was in full swing, but GM felt the market was full of boring, truck-like boxes. They wanted to create an entirely new segment, the sport recreation vehicle, to capture the hearts of younger, adventurous buyers. The Aztec concept car was actually a smash hit at auto shows, but then corporate reality set in. To save money, the radical design was forced onto a GM minivan platform, which distorted its proportions. The result was, well, the Aztec. But if you could hold your nose and look past that bizarre, plastic-clad exterior, you'd find a vehicle of breathtaking practicality. This was the Swiss Army knife of cars. The center console was a removable cooler you could take to the beach. The tailgate had built-in speakers and stereo controls for tailgating parties, and its most famous feature was an optional camping package that included a custom tent and an air mattress, turning the vehicle into a mobile base camp. It was versatile, drove with the comfort of a car, and was actually quite reliable for its era. GM projected sales of 75,000 units a year. They never even came close. The Aztec was universally savaged by the press and became a pop culture joke long before its iconic role in Breaking Bad. The irony, of course, is that 2 decades later, the entire automotive market is dominated by prettier, less practical versions of the Pontiac Aztec. It was the right idea at the right time, wrapped in the wrong body. From a car that was too infamous to succeed, we go to one that was too anonymous to be noticed. By the early 1990s, the Oldsmobile brand was in a death spiral. Once GM's division for innovation and engineering, it had become a punchline, a company that sold uninspired rebadged Chevrolets to the elderly. In a desperate last-ditch attempt to save its soul, the brand poured everything it had into a secret project, the Oldsmobile Aurora, and it was a masterpiece. The design was stunning, a clean, muscular, European-inspired shape that looked like nothing else on the road. Under the hood was a high-tech 4.0-liter V8 engine, a version of Cadillac's legendary North Star, which gave it serious performance. The chassis was engineered to be incredibly rigid, benchmarked against the best luxury sedans from Germany and Japan. It was comfortable, luxurious, and handled like a dream. Oldsmobile was so desperate to escape its tarnished image that they made a radical decision. They put no Oldsmobile badges anywhere on the car. Instead, it just said Aurora. The marketing theory was to create a new, exciting sub-brand, much like Toyota had done with Lexus. The plan backfired spectacularly. People saw this gorgeous, mysterious car and had no idea who made it. The marketing was a failure, but the real problem was at the dealerships. Imagine a salesperson who had spent their entire career selling beige Cutlass CRS, to retirees suddenly having to explain the benefits of a 32-valve V8 and double wishbone suspension to a potential BMW buyer. It was a culture clash they were completely unprepared for. The Aurora was a brilliant car let down by the very brand that created it, a final, beautiful flare sent up by a sinking ship. Now let's jump across the Pacific. The late 80s and early 90s were Japan's bubble economy era. Automakers were flush with cash and were building ambitious, world-beating halo cars like the Acura NSX and Toyota Supra. Subaru, a company known for practical, quirky wagons, wanted in on the action. Their entry into this high-stakes game was the Subaru SVX. The jaw-dropping design came from Giugiaro, the same Italian master who penned Lamborghinis and Maseratis. Its most striking feature was a wild window-in-a-window canopy inspired by aircraft cockpits, designed to reduce wind noise at high speeds. Underneath that exotic body was a silky smooth 3.3-liter flat-six engine that provided a low center of gravity, and of course it was paired with Subaru's legendary all-wheel drive system. This made the SVX an all-weather supercar, a grand tour that was as comfortable carving up a mountain pass in a blizzard as it was cruising down the highway. It was a sophisticated masterpiece, but it was crippled by a single, unforgivable, fatal flaw. It was only available with a 4-speed automatic transmission. Subaru saw the SVX as a luxury tourer, not a hardcore sports car, and believed its target demographic would prefer the convenience of an automatic. They completely misread the enthusiast market. In an era when serious performance cars demanded a manual gearbox, this was a deal breaker. The car that should have established Subaru as a major performance brand instead became a cult classic, a tragic story of being one decision away from perfection. While Subaru was aiming for performance, their rival Honda was tackling a different problem: efficiency. In 1999, they unleashed a tiny spaceship called the Honda Insight. This was the very first hybrid car sold in America, beating the Toyota Prius to the market by several months. It was an absolute engineering marvel, a showcase of obsessive weight-saving and aerodynamic principles. Its body was made of lightweight aluminum, and its teardrop shape, complete with rear-wheel skirts, made it one of the most aerodynamic production cars ever built. Under the hood was a tiny 1.0-liter 3-cylinder engine paired with Honda's integrated motor assist system, where a small electric motor helped the engine during acceleration. The result was an astounding, real-world 70 miles per gallon. And because it weighed less than a modern Mazda Miata and came with a slick 5-speed manual transmission, it was an absolute blast to drive. Driving the Insight was like playing a video game. Its digital dash had a real-time MPG readout that encouraged you to drive as efficiently as possible. But Honda made two critical errors. First, they made it look too futuristic. Second, they only gave it 2 seats. At a time when gas was barely $1 a gallon, the average American family had no incentive to buy an expensive, strange-looking science experiment. Toyota brought the more conventional 4-door Prius to market, and despite being less efficient, its practicality won the day. The Insight proved the technology was possible, but it was simply the right answer to a question the market wasn't asking yet. Let's stick with unique Japanese engineering and talk about the Mazda RX8. For decades, Mazda was the sole champion of the Wankel rotary engine, a fascinating design that uses a spinning triangular rotor instead of pistons. This allows for incredible smoothness and a stratospheric redline. The RX-8 was the culmination of this technology. Its engine screamed all the way to 9,000 RPM with a sound unlike anything else on the road. The chassis was a work of art, with perfect 50-50 weight distribution that gave it telepathic handling. But the RX-8's true genius was that it solved the sports car's biggest problem: practicality. Thanks to a set of clever rear-hinged freestyle doors and the absence of a center pillar, it was a true 4-seat sports car that could comfortably fit adults in the back. But the rotary engine had a needy, demanding personality. It burned oil by design, meaning owners had to check the dipstick regularly. It had notoriously poor fuel economy, and it was prone to a condition where carbon would build up on the engine's internal seals. The solution: you had to rev the engine to its redline frequently just to blow the carbon out and keep it healthy. The RX-8 demanded an owner who understood and catered to its quirks. For the mainstream market, that was simply too much to ask from a daily driver. Moving to Europe, we have a car from the masters of quirky engineering, Saab. With the Saab 9000, they built a car designed to beat the German luxury titans at their own game. It was born from a joint project with Fiat and Alfa Romeo. But while they shared a basic platform, Saab re-engineered almost everything, spending a fortune to meet their obsessive safety standards. The passenger compartment was built like a bank vault. It was shockingly fast, thanks to pioneering and reliable turbocharged engines. And it was immensely practical, with a cavernous hatchback design. The interior was a lesson in ergonomic brilliance. The driver-focused dashboard wrapped around you like a fighter jet cockpit. And it featured the night panel, a button that would turn off all non-essential dash lights to reduce distraction during night driving. This was a car built by engineers for people who appreciated smart design. So why isn't it a legend? Marketing. Saab sold the 9000 as a car for architects and professors, a quirky intellectual choice. Meanwhile, BMW was selling the ultimate driving machine, and Mercedes was selling engineered like no other car in the world. Saab was selling a personality, and it simply couldn't compete with the raw aspirations sold by the Germans. But if we're talking about radical European innovation, we have to talk about the goddess. When Citroën unveiled the DS at the 1955 Paris Motor Show, it caused a near riot. It looked like it had landed from another planet. The name DS, when spoken in French, sounds like the word for goddess, and it was a fitting title. The car's heart was its revolutionary hydropneumatic suspension, which used pressurized spheres of gas and hydraulic fluid instead of springs. This gave it a true magic carpet ride, floating over bumps that would shatter other cars. That same high-pressure hydraulic system also powered the brakes, the steering, and the semi-automatic transmission. The innovations didn't stop there. It had a fiberglass roof to lower the center of gravity and a single-spoke steering wheel designed to collapse safely in a crash. It was a technical masterpiece that famously saved the life of French President Charles de Gaulle, who escaped an assassination attempt because his DS was able to speed away on 3 wheels after its tires were shot out. But that same complexity was its downfall. The car was a nightmare to service for anyone who wasn't a factory-trained specialist. It was too advanced, too alien for the global market. The car that should have revolutionized the automotive world remained a distinctly French phenomenon. Bringing it back to the United States, let's look at the most misunderstood car of the 21st century, the Chevrolet Volt. Launched in 2010, this car was GM's answer to the electric future, born from the ashes of its bankruptcy. It was designed to be the perfect, no-compromise solution to EV range anxiety. It could travel about 40 miles on pure, silent electric power, enough for most people's daily commute. After the battery was depleted, a small, efficient gasoline engine would kick in, acting purely as a generator to create more electricity and power the electric motor. This gave it a total range of over 300 miles. It was not a hybrid like a Prius, it was an extended-range electric vehicle, always driven by its electric motor. It was the best of both worlds. The engineering was brilliant, but the execution failed. GM's marketing was a confusing mess. Nobody understood how it worked. It also became a political football, unfairly criticized and misunderstood. And then there was the price. At over $40,000, it was an incredibly expensive Chevrolet. The Volt was a genius solution, wrapped in a confusing message with a luxury price tag from a mainstream brand. Perhaps one of the most tragic stories on this list isn't about a single car, but an entire brand built on a revolutionary idea. In 1990, General Motors launched Saturn as a different kind of car company. The goal was to beat the Japanese imports at their own game, and their first car, the S-Series, was a home run. It was a great American small car, reliable, efficient, and featuring innovative, dent-proof polymer body panels. You could literally hit it with a shopping cart and it wouldn't leave a mark. But the real magic was the ownership experience. Saturn dealers had fixed, no-haggle prices and treated customers with a level of respect unheard of in the industry. Saturn owners were fanatics, forming a genuine community and even attending homecoming events at the factory in Tennessee. So what killed this brilliant experiment? A classic case of corporate self-sabotage. Its own parent company, GM, grew jealous and resentful of Saturn's independent culture and success. They starved it of funding for new models, then forced it to abandon its unique platforms in favor of rebadged GM vehicles, stripping away everything that made the brand special. GM destroyed its own best idea from the inside out. And finally, we end our journey with perhaps the most famous automotive tragedy of all time. In 1948, a charismatic visionary named Preston Tucker set out to build the car of the future. The Tucker 48 was a beacon from another decade. The engine was in the rear for safety and traction. The windshield was designed to pop out in a crash, not shatter. The dashboard was padded. It featured a safety cell frame to protect occupants. And its iconic center headlight, the Cyclops Eye, turned with the steering wheel to illuminate corners before you even got to them. This car was so advanced, so safe, and so powerful that it put the entire Detroit establishment on notice. But Preston Tucker wasn't just building a car, he was challenging an empire. The big three automakers allegedly used their immense power to disrupt his supply chain. A politically connected senator launched a massive investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission, accusing Tucker of stock fraud. The investigation was a media circus that crippled public trust and drained the company's funds. By the time Preston Tucker was proven innocent on all charges, the dream was dead. Only 51 Tuckers were ever built, each one a monument to a future that was stolen. He lost the battle, but his ideas about automotive safety ultimately won the war, as nearly every innovation he pioneered is now standard on the cars we drive today. So there you have it, 10 brilliant cars that the market, for a host of complex reasons, completely rejected. They prove that being the best, the most innovative, or the most advanced is no guarantee of success. Which of these automotive tragedies do you think deserved a better fate? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through automotive history's greatest what-ifs, hit that like button and subscribe for more.